Hey, everybody, welcome back to Practical Liberty. If you've followed me for any amount of time over the past year, one of the things I rant about the most is the education system and how broken it is. But, what are we supposed to do? Because education is actually one of the most important things you could do to get ahead in life. But the system is so broken that it hurts sending your kids to public schools and universities these days. Well, there actually is an alternative out there. And I'm talking to the CEO of Praxis, Cameron Sorsby. Cameron, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Henry. Looking forward to our chat today.
So can you give folks an idea of what Praxis is? It's the way I understand it is it's a bit of a training school and then kind of an apprenticeship program. So can you kind of flesh that out a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So Praxis, it's a 1-year kind of rigorous college alternative program. We help our participants really get their careers and lives started. So instead of, the normal path, you have a above average, hardworking, smart, high potential 18-year-old, for the last 30, 40, 50 years, that person's expected to go to college. Our approach is, hey, we can help you get into the real world, start, discovering career paths that you might actually be interested in, learning, valuable professional skills, working on kind of those like personal development habits and mindsets, and help you get to the point where, hey, within 12 months, at 19, 20, 21 years old, you're just ready to be a full-on adult and you have the early makings of, successful career.
It's funny. One of the things, so I did go to college and I didn't get a whole lot out of it, I don't think. And I had fun when I was there. It was a great time. I learned, so I got a degree in writing, fiction writing specifically. And the only real benefit to that was having a bunch of, 18 to 21-year-olds rip up your work and grow thick skin for your writing. But so what are the actual skills that you teach versus, getting people placed? So I guess what is the focus of the initial month or two of the Praxis curriculum?
Yeah, so how the program works, it's kind of broken into 3 different phases. So the first 3 months, you're going through what we call our project-based boot camp. And that's like teaching you core foundational professional skills. I'll go into that. And then there's also like a heavy career discovery component to that as well. And I'll talk about that. But that first 3-month period, that's like the core educational portion of the program. The next 3 months, you're still learning, you're still working on projects, but now you're working with our job placement team to actually go through the entire like job hunting process, connect with companies in our network, get prepared for interviews. But the main goal there is like help you land that first true like early career entry level position so you can start learning through real work experience. And then the second half of the program, now that you have your full-time job, you have weekly workshops, you have advisors that you're working with, and it becomes focused on 2 things. Like 1, making sure like you're successful in that initial role. And then 2, like you're continuing to kind of like take control on your own professional development. So most participants, they're working full time, they're attending one-on-one calls, they have group workshops that they're attending, and usually they have, kind of like side projects that they're working on to keep learning and growing in the areas that they want to beyond just what they're doing day to day for the company that they're working at and stuff. And in terms of skills and, the kinds of jobs we help our participants get, it's essentially a business program. So we work predominantly with tech startups and like growing small businesses. And our participants are typically, training and going into like sales, marketing, customer success types of roles, or, if they're working with smaller companies, they're probably doing, probably 1 or like 2 or 3, they're wearing 2 or 3 different hats, with that kind of company. Other participants, if they're going into, companies that are maybe 30 to 100 up to, a couple hundred employees, they're going to be in a more, specialized position to get started. But yeah, we're essentially making sure like they're learning those foundational professional skills, strong writing, how to communicate, how to sell, and then, specific skills depending on what kinds of roles that they ultimately end up going in.
So I'm curious about the, I guess, discovery part. So, you go to college and I originally went undeclared and then I decided I'd major in computer programming and I screwed up my first assignment. So I dropped out of computer programming. So like, I guess, how do you help? what is the discovery process? Because it seems to me most people find their careers because they just kind of stumble into it. Even people that have college degrees, unless you have a very specific law degree or medical degree, my first job out of college was a flight attendant. It was just whatever was available. So what are you doing to kind of help people pick their first job, get that first experience? And then is that the track they're always on, or is there ability to expand from there?
Yeah. So kind of at the big picture level, what we're trying to get our participants to see is like, hey, your career journey, it is like a long-term discovery process. Like we're usually early on is like, we have to kind of break the schooled mindset of like, oh, I go to college, I pick a major, that major is going to lead to, my first job, and that first job is going to lead to, what I do for the next 20, 30 years. Like, my career path is supposed to be linear. And therefore, 18 to 22, I feel so much pressure to figure out like what is the one career path that I'm destined to be on, forever, essentially. And so like we deal a lot with that. It's just kind of like, first and foremost, just like let's teach you like, hey, like here are different examples. Like we have content, we'll bring in guest speakers for workshops on a weekly basis, where we're just like breaking down like, hey, here's this successful person. They're now running their own business. They're now leading marketing at a company, et cetera. And you're learning directly from them of like what has their career trajectory, what has their career journey been like? And then the actual like hardcore curriculum that you're going through, like in the first module, the first month of the program, you're doing a week overview on sales, a week overview on marketing, a week overview on operations and customer success. And then you're actually doing projects in each of those areas, just so you can get like baseline knowledge on, hey, what kinds of people tend to gravitate towards more like early career sales opportunities versus marketing, et cetera. What are those kind of like core skills that I'll need to develop if I do want to go into one of those specific areas? And then through the project work you're doing, you're actually doing projects that resemble like, hey, this is what I'd be doing if I was in an entry-level sales or marketing role. And then you're also learning about different kinds of companies and stuff. So, one of my big things is early on in your career, it matters way less what specific kind of role that you're working in. And it's more about, what's going to be like the best company environment for you. Like, given what your current like skill level experience is, what you think your career interests are right now, what you're naturally gravitating towards, do you seem like you'd be a better fit going into like a small 15 to 20 person, small business? And hey, like you're mostly doing customer success work, but you're also getting to do some side projects for the marketing team. And, you're in that business and like you see the owner of that business every day, or, other people are going to be a better fit to go like right into like, an entry-level software sales role, at a, 100 person, 150 person, tech company and stuff. And it's like, either way, you can get a lot out of both of those opportunities. They can be very different, but like at that stage in your career, I think it's hard to go wrong as long as you're putting yourself in overall like a high quality business environment. And then again, like we're really big on like what you do in terms of the first job you get. That does not determine, what you can do 5 years from now, 10 years from now, et cetera. And then we also try to place participants, like we work with startups and kind of smaller businesses because it is more, it's easier to kind of, start in customer support, start in sales, move over to the product team or move over, into like more like back-end operations role or something over time and stuff. So we try to give them like in the first 3 months, like just kind of like, what do you need to know to understand what could be a good fit versus not a good fit for you in terms of that first job, but also help them start like thinking more deeply, more long-term about, oh, like, we had a, guest speaker on the other week and, they were talking about how they started in sales and then, they knew they didn't want to stay in sales for more than 2 years, but being in sales for that amount of time, it really like gave them the confidence to come out of their shell, really help them with their communication, their persuasiveness, et cetera. And then, a few years later, they always had entrepreneurial aspirations in the back of their mind, but because they had that sales experience, in a particular role or position, now they have more confidence, like, hey, I know how to go get my initial customers. Now I'm in a position where like it's really important that I'm not, an employee long term, but now I have the confidence and knowledge and skills, like go start my own thing and stuff. Like we had an awesome alumni in the early years of the program. He stayed in software sales at one of our awesome hiring partner companies that we've placed like 40 or 50 people out over the past like 5 years or so. PandaDoc, they do like e-signature documents and stuff, like pretty basic online contracts and everything. He was in software sales with them for 3 years. And then I think like 2 years ago, he moved like back home to somewhere in Oregon, and he started his own brewery and stuff. Like those two those two types of professions are not very related, but him staying in software sales for 3 years, like it allowed him to, gain really valuable experience, develop certain skills that would be translatable to what he wanted to do next, and also put him in like the personal financial position where it's like, hey, if I want to go, take a risk, start my own business, like now I can do that.
Yeah, it's one of the things I talk about a lot is the talent stack, which is a concept from Scott Adams of, it's you don't have to be the best writer, you don't have to be the best business person, but when you stack all these things together, it becomes more than the sum of its parts. So it sounds like that's
better to be like in the top 25% in 2 or 3 areas rather than be in the top 1% in one area, I think is like the general framework.
Yeah, it's when you combine it all together, it gives you a boost ahead of a lot of people. So it sounds like I really love the real world experience. Like I spent, I don't know, 4 years in college. I feel like if I would have done something like Praxis, I would have been 4 years ahead of where I was when I came out. And, I came out, I became a copywriter, and I had a lot of success in that career. So do you teach, it sounds like you're teaching basic business skills that people can build off of. Is that kind of the concept of, because you're not teaching a specific thing. You let the company teach the programming or the customer support, but you're teaching the more general communication and business skills that you need to succeed. Would that be kind of accurate?
Yeah, it's like a third career discovery of just like, I want greater context into like what opportunities are out there, which ones could fit me, which ones, am I interested in pursuing both short term and long term. And that's where, like the kinds of guest speakers that we bring in are really valuable. Like you're actually learning from, real world successful professionals, entrepreneurs, etc. We have core curriculum that's just like teaching you, kind of like sales 101, content marketing 101, etc. Like, all right, like at some point in the boot camp, like you are focused on, hey, I think I want to go into, either a sales or a customer success role in this kind of business. So I am focusing on developing the specific skills that would make me a strong candidate for those kinds of areas. But it's more like another third of it, is also like, what are the, high level, like soft skills that you're going to need to be a high performing young professional, no matter what specific job you're in, as well as kind of like the career building skills that you're going to need. Like, we want our participants coming out of the program, at time of graduation, be like, okay, I can look back and, before Praxis, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was not in my career yet, whether I was 18 or 20 or 23, I was not kind of at the first step of, building my long-term career path for myself. Maybe I was working, at Chick-fil-A or, somewhere in the food and bev or retail, like, the typical hourly wage, jobs that you hold like through high school and college and stuff. Like step one is like, I have started my career. I can look back and confidently say like, I have started my career. And then the second thing is like, I certainly, don't have everything figured out just because it's been a year in this program. I haven't, discovered what my dream job is or my dream career path is, but I have enough confidence and know-how that I can keep figuring things out on my own. And then, cherry on top is I'm still part of like the Praxis community and network. So, other companies that are coming into our hiring network, like if I'm looking for second and third job opportunities, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, like I have this ongoing professional network of people that, I think the underlying theme of the program is like, we want to help people take control of their career. And, it's like you were saying when we were emailing, That's definitely been inspired by how I found freedom in an unfree world,
Yeah.
and other similar content and stuff. But I think that's kind of the underlying theme. Like, I know I want to be in control of like my career decisions. I don't want to end up, hey, I went to school, I went to college, I graduated. 10 years down the road, I feel like, I feel miserable in a dead end job, and I don't really know how to get myself out of that situation. We want to work with people right at the beginning to set themselves up for, kind of longer term success. And, it's really cool because like our program does not isn't like overly focused on like how can we make sure you're maximizing your short-term career earnings. You come out of this program with a 75K job and you're on a path to making six figures in less than 12 months, etc. Like, we were able to tailor and personalize it to the participants in the program, so like we're meeting them where they're at. And a lot of participants, they're going to be better off like, hey, I want to kind of treat the first 3 to 5 years of my career as like this kind of like discovery, exploratory phase. I really don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to start learning through real world experience. I know I want to, have a better job than, just working at like a local retail shop, etc. But I'm also not kind of artificially forcing myself to work on, a timeline that doesn't make sense for me. So like, we have awesome like 18, 19-year olds. They're going to get such a more valuable work experience than they could otherwise access, or their peers are accessing at that age. But that doesn't mean they have to just like, all right, like I'm essentially living my life as if I'm 30 years old now. But it gives you the optionality to be like, hey, like if it's important to you to, get on a early career track that, you can be making really good money sooner than later, like, you can navigate that. We can help you get there. If it's important to you, just like, I want to work for a company that I'm really passionate about. I want to do work that's fulfilling to me. I want to surround myself, with kind of like-minded people. Maybe I'm not at the life stage where, I feel the pressure to, maximize my, earning potential and stuff. It's tailored to that. So that's just like a big part of the program that I value is, the underlying theme is like, I want to have that personal career freedom, and I'm willing to work for it. But of course, that looks differently for different people at different stages of their life.
Yeah, it's really interesting that. So I think besides all the socializing and SJW stuff in colleges, one of the big problems with college is it kind of creates the illusion that there's this career trajectory that everybody has to go on, right? There's you go to high school, then you go to college, then you get your first corporate entry level, then you work your way up to manager. And if you work really, really hard, maybe you'll be in the C-suite someday. And it feels safe to people. Like this is the destined path that lives can take. And if you don't get to the C-suite, you've screwed up someone there. But I think there really is. It's a pick your own adventure. Like that's how the world works. So I really like the self-directed part of the Praxis ideology, really, because that's how, if you want to be successful in the world, you can work your way up to the C-suite. That is an option for some people. Like that. Let's not pretend that's not necessary. Like we need executives in big companies, and we will always have big companies. But the world can be so much more fun than that. That type of structure isn't for everybody, and to pretend it is by sending everybody through the same career trajectory, it doesn't seem right. Yeah. So I've debated college, the value of college, with several people, and one of the things that they always throw back at me is, well, if you look at the numbers, college graduates make $1 million more on average than non-college graduates, and I think Praxis has been around since 2014 or something like that. Yeah. So you don't have that long-term, data. But what would your argument be against that type of, pure rational numbers type argument?
Yeah, I mean, I think the simple point is, well, the numbers look that way because historically in our society over the last 30, 50 years, everyone that has potential to be successful on more traditional career terms, they've all been pushed into college. Right. So the people that have the ability to be successful on those metrics, they are going to college. It's not because they went to college that is the thing that makes, gives them the ability to have that like financial success and everything. And like, that's just a very straightforward point. Like everybody, if you ask anybody, like when you think about someone who doesn't go to college historically, you think about someone who, was lazy, they're just like a slacker, or they didn't have like the mental capacity to, thrive in that. And they just need to find, a good, stable kind of job that, is a good fit for them kind of thing. The people that have higher potential, et cetera, they need to be going to college because they're being, trained for knowledge work and those kinds of career paths, as well as, the case of like, well, where education is more than just career training. It's about becoming a good citizen, critical thinker, et cetera. Go to college. It's like, I mean, it's kind of like, do you really think that's what college provides? Beyond just getting you that degree and everything. Like that's the main point that I make is, it's been a sorting mechanism of, hey, like it's a more valuable signal for the 18-year-old be like, I'm able to get into a Harvard, a Yale, et cetera, versus like what I actually developed over that 4-year education experience. And then, I would make a strong case that that narrative is crumbling with, how ideological oriented university has become, where, if you're the type of person who has set up their life, or, your parents have set up your life to like your entire goal from the ages of like 5 to 18 has been to be accepted into one of these like Ivy League universities, then I would say like, I would not have any confidence like you actually have the skills and ability to, build a fulfilling, successful life in a broader sense of that term that, is more valuable to me than what your earning potential is.
Yeah. So I've been a freelancer for, I don't know, 15, 16 years now. And there's no college degree requirements for freelancers. Nobody ever asks where you went to college, especially in sales positions. It's how much can you sell, right? Nobody cares about the degree. Some of the most successful copywriters in the world are high school dropouts in some cases. I'm thinking of Clayton Makepeace, who was one of the best copywriters to ever live. And, he dropped out of college and went on motorcycle tours across the country before he found copywriting, and then became this multimillionaire. So it's about personal choice, really, and finding what you're really good at. So what type of people are you looking for in Praxis? Because you're not replacing the entire university system. You can't take 10 million kids, I'm sure, as much as you'd love to have that size of business. So what is the sorting criteria for people that you think will do well in Praxis?
It first and foremost, it comes down to like a values and mindset alignment. I think our most successful participants that thrive, in the program, after the program, I would describe them like these are growth-minded individuals. They want to, have ownership over their, what they're learning, how they're developing, what, they have the confidence, or they develop the confidence like, hey, if there's a career path out there that I want to work towards, like I know I can figure things out on the fly. I can, learn the skills I need to. I'm not just going to default to, what is the, like, there needs to be a set path towards, an outcome that I want. Like I'm kind of the kind of person who's willing to bet on themselves and then back up that bet with the hard work to actually like get it done kind of thing. And then I think, other mindset things that I would kind of put under that kind of like growth mindset bucket is like having an open mind of like what kinds of, career opportunities, what kind of life do you want to build for yourself? So, I think somebody who, a very like easy scenario that is relatively common is like, we'll get, somebody checking out the program interested in it. And they're like, I want to become a software developer. Is this a software development program? And it's like, well, that's not something we naturally focus on anyway. So like the answer is no, but someone who is in the mindset of like, I know exactly what I want to do. And I just want to develop the skills to get to that point, to do that thing. They're probably not going to be a good fit for our program. Like we're taking that kind of broader approach to getting your career started. And then I was like, but to contrast that, like we've had participants come into the program, they've already built some, technical, like hard technical skills on their own. And then what they want out of the program is kind of like the overall like career building skills, the guidance, the access to like, certain kinds of career opportunities in our network, et cetera. They value like the community aspect of like, hey, like I know I can be successful, figure things out on my own, but I really like the idea of like surrounding myself, with other like-minded people in terms of like, the peers that I'm going through the program with, mentors that I can access through the program, et cetera. I think, again, that kind of goes back to a growth mindset of like, you probably value that kind of long-term community where you can build, both valuable professional and personal relationships and stuff. So that's the biggest thing. Like a certain level of like value and mindset alignment has to be there for someone to be a good fit for the program. You can be 18 and not have like no clue what you want to do career wise. And like, as long as you just have like the idea of getting your foot inside the door of a like quality growing business is exciting to you. That's pretty much it. And then as long as you have, above average, like someone who's has a track record of doing things, like going above and beyond outside a classroom setting. So, 18, 19-year-old who like busted their ass through high school, serving tables. They can tell good anecdotes about like, hey, when I first started working at this restaurant, I was really uncomfortable. I was shy. I figured out like how to come out of my shell. I figured out like, oh, this is the kind of customer service I need to deliver to, our customers to, get good tips at the end of the night. Mm-hmm. I figured it out. People who, it's like, hey, at 16, I got my first job and I just realized like I loved working more than, I enjoyed going to school. And like, I was trying to pick up hours as much as I could, like kind of just like a positive relationship to work experience early on, in those kind of teen years, I think is a really good signal. And then in terms of skills, like we can't help everyone. We can't work with everyone. What we kind of look for is, you have good, strong intellectual curiosity, clear signs, like you're a critical thinker, good communication skills is the easiest indicator. If you can, if you're an above average writer, you're comfortable in a conversational setting, it's, 17, 18 up to, kind of those early 20s is the typical age range we work with. And then it's clear you have that desire to like build a career of your own rather than you're just looking for, you're seeking a career out of like the security or stability of that career path. Like it's kind of a combination of those kinds of things. So people who value independence, but independence doesn't need to mean like, I know, like I'm going to be an entrepreneur by 22 and, kind of have the stereotypical like personality and risk profile of, kind of that serial entrepreneur type. Like that's not the case. It's more about you want to build a life of your own and be in control. So it's like, I've seen participants who, spend the first 5 to 7 years of their career, are early participants and, they were like a really great employee for a growing startup company. And then at some point, they started doing like side freelance projects. And then at some point they're like, hey, I actually feel confident. And I know like if I was going to go start my own business, like I actually know what I would actually want to start now. Like maybe it always appealed to me in some way, but maybe I thought I was going to be more of like an employee at a smaller company rather than a corporation. That's a great fit for people, but I think there's different types of entrepreneurship that are more accessible to. And so, we get a lot of people coming to the program that would not label themselves as like, I'm a, aspiring entrepreneur. And then, 3-5 years out of the program, they're doing very entrepreneurial things, but they're not seeing it as like, my identity is around being like a business owner, entrepreneur type. It's just, I've fallen into, or, I've kind of come like, because of that collection of experiences, I found myself in a position where, I can do good work. I can be valuable to others in this kind of professional setting versus just being an employee at a company somewhere.
I'm curious. Do you take people? So I'm thinking back to my own like experience. I went to college because that's what you did. I was, you
Yep.
know, in the
Me
AT
too.
classes and there was never discussion. It was about which college you go to, not whether or not you go to college. But I graduated with a degree in writing, which is fairly useless in the real world. There's not companies lining up to hire fiction writers. But I thought I was going to be that artist writing the next great American novel. And then
Yep.
about 22, I realized that, oh, the real world requires money. And being a flight attendant and writing novels on the side isn't paying a whole lot. So I started the freelance career. But I think for somebody like that, I had a college degree, but would I still have been a good fit at Praxis, like with a college degree coming in, uh, having made
Yeah.
that
In fact,
realization?
so probably 80% of our students are like either they never went to college or they went to college for a year or two, realize like, hey, this isn't taking me where I want to go, and they either like found Praxis while they were in college, like, oh, finally, like an alternative to this approach, or they were already in the process or already dropped out and then they found Praxis and stuff. So like, we're set up to be most predominantly a college alternative, but we've had a lot of successful participants over the years that were recent college grads, a year or two out, or even slightly older that were kind of in career transition mode. And the big thing is for that kind of type of student that we work with, it's usually not a fit if you're looking at the program as like, oh, this program delivers me a job, and what I'm looking for is a job first and foremost. But if you really value like the overall kind of like professional development, education from the program and like putting yourself in this community and network beyond just like the length of the program, it can be a really good fit. So again, it comes back to, is there clear like value and mindset alignment, rather than, hey, I graduated college and, job prospects aren't looking great. And, I heard you can get me a pretty good job. So yeah, like, I guess I'll pay you money to do that. And then honestly, the other thing, that can be a little bit of an issue with college graduates, frankly, is you probably have student debt that you're on the hook for. And you're putting yourself in a position where, you know, you've already kind of handcuffed yourself to a certain, level of, salary, pay, etc. And that can be tricky for us. Like, yeah, like we can help somebody, get those kinds of jobs, but what we're best at is like when you're in the position where you're not kind of bringing in that baggage with you, and you'd be like, hey, like where can I go for a year that's going to be the best like learning experience for me in a more like real world professional setting. So like recent college graduate, hey, I started making my student debt payments a few months ago, plus, what I'll be paying for this program. Like, therefore, plus, probably have a sense of entitlement because because I got that degree that everyone told me for, 20 years of my life that I need to have. I probably feel, more likely to have a sense of entitlement of like what kinds of jobs, I'm qualified for. So we run up against that quite a bit with some of the, kind of college grad prospects, applicants in the program and everything. But again, it all comes back to values and mindset over like what your specific background or circumstances coming into the program is.
That entitlement mentality drives me crazy. And it's so common among, but I don't even blame the kids necessarily for it. This is what they were propagandized to believe their whole life. So I was homeschooled for 3 years. It actually, my sister homeschools her 7 kids. Do you have a disproportionate a number of homeschoolers apply? Because it seems like you're the perfect for people that already think differently about education. It seems like this is like the perfect fit for them.
Yeah, historically, I think like around a third of our historic like total graduates were homeschooled.
Wow.
At some point, most of them were like homeschooled, probably the majority of their like K through 12 timeline, or like even through high school and everything. So definitely disproportionate amount. We found with homeschoolers, they tend to be, I don't know, they honestly they can kind of fall into 2 buckets of like, you get the kind of like sheltered homeschooler who's, maybe you just need to like break out it, like move out of mom and dad's house for a year or two and just kind of like get some real world experience and maybe not even worry about kind of like getting that career started yet. But a lot of the homeschoolers that we've worked with, they tend to be much more mature than, their peers that were, in a more traditional like public or private school setting and stuff. And it's like, because you were kind of in an accelerated educational path, maybe, by the time you were in those high school years homeschooling, you probably had, more agency over like what your curriculum was. You had more agency over, your how you set up your schedule and, time management skills. You weren't just showing up at school and then, going from class to class when the bell rang, et cetera. Like, you've already had to develop skills. Maybe because you were homeschooled, you were able to, gain more work experience, at 16, 17, because, you're not beholden to the school schedule and everything. So there's been so many positives that have made homeschoolers just kind of like a natural fit for the program. So yeah, that's been pretty exciting. And usually I think, we'll get homeschoolers that were homeschooled and they're doing Praxis right out of, essentially their high school. And then we'll get some really awesome homeschoolers that were homeschooled and then they just never even thought about going to college and they just, started their lives. And, maybe it's a year or two after kind of those high school years that they, feel like, hey, I'm ready for Praxis to help me get that longer term career off the ground. I've had really good experience, but maybe I feel like I've hit a little bit of a ceiling in terms of, my own like professional growth or the opportunities I can access. Like I've gone as far as I can on my own, and now I'm looking for the right like resources and guidance to keep growing. That kind of life stage has been like perfect for us. Because like they've already shown that like high level of kind of self-directedness, and now we can help them like direct that towards kind of bigger, career opportunities for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that self-directed is a trait that you get in homeschool kids more than anything else. They take responsibility for their own work and education in a way that kids that are shuffled through a prison system essentially don't. So practically speaking, what is it? How is it online? How do the courses work? How does the job or the the apprenticeship placements work? Did people need to relocate? Like what are the practical steps here if somebody wants to sign up?
So everything we're delivering in terms of like the nuts and bolts of the program, everything's done remotely. It's not like you're logging into an online class lecture or anything like that. So on a week-to-week basis, you have about 10 to 12 hours of like project curriculum work that you're doing. So like we have a curriculum portal online that's guiding you through the projects that you're doing. There's no like quizzes or exams or anything like that. The goal is we're helping you build a really strong initial professional portfolio of projects and content that you create through those first few months of the program. And then on top of like the 10 to 12 hours of project work you're doing, you have 2 live group workshops that you attend every week online. Monday nights, we bring in guest speakers. Those sessions are available for all participants at different stages of the program. They're also available to our alumni. And then Wednesday night, that's where you meet with like your specific cohort that you're going through the first half of the program with. And each month you have like 1 to 2 different boot camp advisors that are kind of responsible for facilitating, that month's curriculum module. And they're the ones that are like giving you feedback on your project work on a week-to-week basis as you complete it. So the program, like, it is very challenging, and it definitely like it gets our participants out of their comfort zone. Even, participants that had, alternative education experience, were homeschooled, et cetera. It's still getting them out of their comfort zone because, the way we kind of think and design the curriculum, it's, the standards we have and the structure we kind of put together, it tries to resemble more like what does it take to be a high performer in a professional environment, rather than like, here's another version of school that we're giving you. So there's structure to it. You have support from your advisors, but like you're responsible for showing up to your workshops. You're responsible for, kind of keeping up with the cadence of like your weekly projects. You're responsible for implementing the feedback that you get. from your advisors, just like if you're getting feedback from colleagues or supervisors on a job and everything. And I think that kind of structure helps prepare them for, the demands of your first like career job and stuff. And then in terms of the placement process, how that works is like starting in month 4, after you've gone through the first few months of the program, you start working with our placement team. So like you do an onboarding call with your placement advisor. They're essentially getting on the same page with you of like, hey, now that you've gone through the first 3 months of the program, like, what kinds of opportunities are you most interested in pursuing? Here are our recommendations as we've gotten to know you through, the program. Here are recommendations on like how you can keep improving your, we call them talent profiles. It's kind of like portfolios that we're sending out to companies and stuff. And then it's essentially like three to 4 months of like guided job hunting. So we have companies that we can connect you to like direct to interviews and stuff, but we're also showing you and we're teaching you like, here's how to job hunt in a much more entrepreneurial way. Like, here's how to sell yourself. Here's how to pitch yourself to companies, instead of just like, applying online, crossing your fingers and hoping, you get an interview. We're teaching you essentially how to run a sales process, with the job hunting and everything.
Man, that's so valuable. Like most people, they never teach you how to get a job in college. It's amazing. There's no actual job, like vocational training in college at all. So
Yeah.
even people that just, they fill out a million applications, but they don't know how to write a cover letter or they don't know how to get anyone's attention. It's such an important skill. Even if freelance business like I have, you have to get a client every couple months sometimes in the beginning, especially. So
it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that can be a challenging part of the program experience for participants because like there's real world consequences. Like you're putting in the work to create like a tailored personal pitch to a company and you don't always hear back, let alone like get invited to an interview or get to that offer stage and everything. But I think that's one of the most valuable components of the program experience is just like going through that and understanding, like being able to hone in on your pitch and like what's going to get a response to an email, what's going to get a response to a message, et cetera. What points do you want to nail in an interview conversation, those kinds of things. And then job opportunities, we have both like remote and in-person opportunities that we're connecting participants to. Before 2020, probably 95% of our like job placements were in person and participants would relocate. Especially with like tech startups and stuff that we've worked with, that's just been more remote opportunities available over the last, few years and stuff. And it's interesting to kind of just track year over year how that kind of like remote work trend is going. I would say probably over the last 2 years, it's probably closer to like 60% of our job placements have been remote versus in person. And honestly, I think there's pros and cons to that. It's been nice to have it's just given us more flexibility where you don't necessarily have to relocate for a specific job opportunity. But I also think there's a lot of value to getting that in-person work experience, especially early on in your career. So we try to just make sure on an individual participant basis, you're focusing on the right opportunities for you. But ultimately, if you want to be open to relocation, et cetera, that's your call. We can help you get both, and we're going to have our own recommendations for you, et cetera. And maybe sometimes what we'll tell participants is, hey, like maybe that first job it's okay to be remote, but I think when you're looking at the next 2 to 3 years, it's probably going to be valuable for you to get that in-person work experience. Or hey, you have a remote job, it's helping you develop really strong skills in this particular area. Here's how you can keep learning and growing in these other areas, so you're not just like neglecting other like important areas of your own professional development and stuff. I think another big message is don't look at your job experience as like the be all end all of your individual professional career development. The people that build the most fulfilling and successful careers, they're always doing things outside of just their formal work experience, to develop new skills, to, network, build relationships with people, kind of help set themselves up for, what are the next steps going to be beyond, spending a year or two at a specific company.
So you've had a ridiculously high success rate at helping your Praxis students get jobs. Do you worry at all with the kind of impending economic doom that's coming up that those numbers are going to drop off? Or do you think it's actually, because I can see the argument that the skills you're teaching are more valuable now than they ever have been before. To actually learn business skills and become valuable company right now is more important than any college degree could be if the economy is actually going to tank as hard as it looks like it should.
Yeah, frankly, I think both things are true. Like we're definitely like operating in a more contracted, labor market and everything. So it's like if we just keep doing the same things that we've been accustomed to doing, then it will probably be, a little harder, a little more challenging to like help our participants land those first jobs. But I think on the long-term view, like on an individual basis, like what you're focusing on, what you're learning in the program, that's going to make you, a kind of like a more anti-fragile, like professional long-term and stuff. Like you're building the confidence, you're going through the hard things right now, early on, that are going to like make it easier for you to kind of navigate this like new world that we're living in and stuff. So that's the goal for me. Honestly, like of course, getting that initial job experience is really valuable, but that for me, that's like a means to an end. Like it's valuable to get real world experience so you can develop skills, etc. But the overall goal is like because you're going through our programming at Praxis, like you're becoming an individual that can build a career that they want long term and everything. So yeah, we're reacting to like changes in the labor market in real time and everything, because we are more selective with who we accept in the program. We're not running a 10,000 student program, so yeah, like macroeconomic trends still impact us to some degree, but we're not having to be like, okay, how are we making 10,000 job placements this year? It's, hey, how can we help this 100 to 125 students like have great career outcomes coming out of the program and stuff.
So the first time I actually heard of you was when you talked to Tom Wood's School of Life, and
Cool.
You brought on a couple of your students there.
Yeah.
You've had some great success stories. Can you like kind of give me a couple of your favorite student success stories that you've had?
Yeah. One of them, I'll think of two here. So first one is a graduate. Her name's Olivia. She went through the program in late 2016. I think she found the program because her dad was a Tom Woods listener, actually. And she was homeschooled, pretty much up until 18. And then after school, she decided she wanted to, essentially travel the world for 6 months. And she totally self-funded that trip. She went on it. And then she actually extended it from 6 months to 12 months and figured out like, how can I make money while I'm traveling to, continue to fund my travels and stuff. When she came back, she went back to work at the restaurant that she was working at through high school. She was, server before she became a sushi chef for that restaurant, which I think is just like a really cool anecdote. And then I think she was probably right around 20 when she started the program. And then she started the program. She got placed in a sales role at that same company I mentioned earlier, PandaDoc. And coming to the program, she really didn't want to do sales. Most young people have a kind of natural distaste for sales. They think of sales as like sleazy used car salesman and everything. I think that's when we talk about career discovery, that's a good example of like we kind of break the myths of what sales is really like, and who do you have to be successful in sales. It's not, you don't have to be this kind of like fake, overly aggressive, extroverted, snake oil salesman type at all. Like a lot of different personalities can work in sales, and it can be a much more creative role than marketing can be sometimes. Like that's a good point, etc. But anyway, with Olivia, she started in sales. She like earned a promotion in her first 2 months, which was partially out of need of like the company was quickly expanding. So she had an opportunity to go from like an entry level, what's called like an SDR, is that entry level sales position, into an account executive like within just a couple months. And TLDR, she's still working at PandaDoc. She's now their director of account management. She essentially started her own team after 2 years on their sales team. They saw a need for like an account manager role that was working with their higher level clients, essentially getting them more involved with PandaDoc, upselling them essentially and making sure like they're taken care of, et cetera. And now she's like built out her own team, managing the team. She's got other Praxis grads on her team now, et cetera.
That's cool.
And then she's also had, like a cool lifestyle trajectory where, initially when she got placed with PandaDoc, they were in like the first 6 months we were working with them, their only office was in San Francisco. So she moved out to San Francisco, spent a couple of years there. And then, her and her, I think her now fiance, like they were traveling all around the country after that when things kind of went more remote. Now they set up shop, in Tennessee, bought a house, getting married, all that kind of good stuff. So that's a cool example. And then one of our very first participants, his name's Mitchell Broderick. I think he might be in Tom Wood School Life program as well, but he had a really cool trajectory. He dropped out of college after like 1 or 2 semesters at a local community college, went through the program, got a cool sales experience, and then he went and worked for kind of like a close friend of the program. He had a marketing agency. So Mitchell started, met that person, through the Praxis network, started working with him like a year and a half out of the program, kind of being their like director, like their number one sales guy and everything. And then Mitchell and that other guy, they've become business partners. He has an ownership stake in the marketing agency. They're working on starting a mortgage business together now, et cetera. So just really cool. Like he's not in the tech startup world at all. He's very much like in more traditional business industries, I guess you could say. But he's, I think he's like the prime example of someone that has really taken like full ownership of his career, and like Praxis was able to, help him get that initial start and then make some connections later. But it's because of the value that he brings to the table that, he's set up those kinds of longer term opportunities to become an owner of that business, start another business kind of alongside that one and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. It really is. It's that choose your own adventure. You don't have to go along that corporate ladder. What I love about what you're doing is I sit here and complain about the education system and how it's, screwing up kids, but you've actually, you're out there running a company that's providing an alternative to the screwed up situation. So the website is discoverpraxis.com, right?
That's right.
And people, if you're looking to join Praxis, you can just apply right on that site, I think.
Yeah, everything on the website. You can get like basic information. You can request our program guide. You can set up a one-on-one call with somebody from the team, just like ask questions, get a better feel for how the program works, and if it's like a good fit for you. And then we'll kind of, show you like, hey, here's the best way to kind of either prepare or just go ahead and start the application process.
I mean, yeah. So everybody that's got, my sister's got kids starting to look at college, and I know they don't want to go to college. So Praxis is a great alternative.
Yeah, and we're nothing official yet, but we have some things in the works that would allow us to work with slightly younger age group as well. Cool. Almost like potentially like a summer program or like a gap year program that would be a really good fit for like 16, 17, 18-year-olds, that are not quite like, hey, I'm like ready to get my full-time career started, but want like really valuable kind of like professional development, kind of career preparation, life preparation and stuff. That's been a huge ask of, our like homeschool audience over the years. So we're working on that as well. So more to come there, but discoverpraxis.com. You can check out more information about the program. You can talk to somebody from our team and kind of get the lowdown.
All right. Anywhere else you want to send people, your personal Twitter or anything like that to follow up?
Personal Twitter, I'm not super active right now, but it's Cameron Sorsby. I'll, definitely always kind of post semi-regular updates on what's going on with the program and stuff. But yeah, website, you can kind of connect with me personally over on Twitter too.
All right. So discoverpraxis.com. And Cameron, thanks so much for coming on.
All right. Thanks, Henry.